Well, welcome to our Thinking of Recruiting workshop, guys. What we're wanting to run through today is some really crucial tips for getting ready to recruit. This is the sort of thing that it's sort of getting your ducks in a row before you recruit somebody. And what we're going to do is Beck's going to run through some of things like agreements and the paperwork that you need to have in place and that sort of thing, all of the different parts that make up what you need for an employee. And then I'll give you some tips on how you can streamline the process of recruiting and the process of onboarding an employee. So we'll get started, and like Beck said, if we lose power or anything like that, you'll know it's because of the thunderstorm that's going on behind the scenes at the moment. If you've got, one thing I'll say is if you've got any questions, just drop them in the chat for us if you don't mind, and we'll come back to them at the end of each section. So just put them in the chat. Do you guys know where the chat is on this?
You can see a little chat box in the bottom there.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. So just drop a little question in there if you've got any questions for us. All right. So I'm going to hand over to you then, Beck.
Okay. I think you'll need to do the slides.
Yeah, no problem.
So one of my, when we were discussing what we were going to do for this workshop, we were going to start with creative recruitment ideas, because obviously it is just so ridiculoly hard to find good people at the moment. It doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, it doesn't matter what skill sets you're looking for. It's just the hardest I think it's ever been. And I think post-COVID, and I think possibly before COVID, the world was changing, but COVID has accelerated it. There's been a real change in what employees are wanting. For instance, look at us now doing a webinar at 6 o'clock at night from home. And possibly before COVID, that would have been very frowned upon. But we all know that if the dog barks or the cat comes through, everyone's quite okay with that, because the world has changed so much. And that is translating into the workplace, which is making it harder, because people have really, the whole great resignation, and people are really starting to think about what it is they want. And I think the really important thing when you think about starting to look for someone is the right person in the right role at the right time with the right support. And that is just so important, because, you can have the right person in the right role, but if it's not the right time and you don't have the support behind them, it's not going to work either. So like Sam said, you need to get your ducks in a row first. And even in our business, HR Dynamics, we would love another consultant down here. We are getting work, and it would be great. But we have an awesome little team of Nicole, Ann and I down here, and finding the right person and getting the right mix of work for that person is really important. So we're just not rushing it. That's, yeah. So can I go to the next one, please?
Oh, how did we end up there? Oh, no, we're giving all our surprises away. There you go.
Excellent. So what will we cover today? So one of the most important things is paying correctly. Can's had a good one with a florist yesterday who managed to do some massive underpayments in a very short amount of time. And, obviously that went right through to Fair Work. So you have to know your award, you have to know the correct rate of pay. And you need to know as part of that your allowances and your penalties, because that is where most people pay the base rate correctly. It's all the other stuff they get wrong. You need to make sure you've got work cover. We've seen a few people who haven't had work cover and have already got staff. One employer we saw had a business going for 12 months with staff before they realised they needed work cover. So it's always one of our first questions. Just some issues you need to consider back to that kind of award Fair Work. Then Sam will discuss policies and procedures, and we will. It was really interesting when we put this together. Sam did some slides and I did some slides, and then we sort of got together, and it was really interesting because we're both, without even really discussing it, saying the exact same stuff. So, it just shows you it's so important. Setting expectations with employees before starting, and then ways to streamline. So I'll just have to move us so all I can see is us over here. Yeah. So one of the things before recruiting, and that goes back to that whole right time, right place, right role, right support. what are our short, medium, and long-term needs? It's okay if you put a temp on. That is not a drama. We put a temp on just before Christmas. We had a bulk amount of admin work that we needed to get through in a short amount of time. And we put a temp on, and that's, you know, they didn't have client contact. They were just in the background putting some documents. Actually, they were COVID policies, but putting some COVID policies together. And, you know, that was our short-term weeks. We didn't need them long-term, but we did need some help there and then. What skills are essential and nice to have? Really important you have a think about it. It's like I said, you know, you need to be a little bit more flexible in these post-COVID times. However, you can't have an accountant without an accounting degree. Can't have an engineer without an engineering degree. Or, you know, who's not part of the, you know, who's not a certified practicing engineer. There are certain skills you must have in roles. There are certain licenses you need to have, or it's illegal for them to be operating that piece of machinery or equipment. Or so, you know, have a think about what's nice to have and what they absolutely need to have. And, you know, you can really you can start when you process thinking about that in your recruitment, right from when you get their resumes right through to the interview process. And if they don't have that skill, say a license, is that something, because they're just the right person and they're going to be amazing, is that something you can get for them down the line? And it's okay to put that in an employment contract. You know, part of this role, you must get your MR license within 6 months of commencement. That can be a condition of employment. Do you offer benefits, flexibility? What does it look like? I had a really interesting conversation with an employer down here who has a carpet cleaning and pest control business. And Donna is also the president of one of the chambers of commerce down here on the Sunshine Coast. And I said to her, what about work-life balance for your staff? And she said, well, that's an interesting question, because she said, what is work-life balance? And, you know, what might be flexibility to one person could be very different to another. So it's really talking to your employees. You know, someone might want to work 4 long days a week because they have their child every Wednesday, or they might want to work 5 days and finish, you know, earlier on a Friday because they need to go and, you know, go and do something. So, you know, you have to sort of think about what you can offer. When do they have to be? And then there are certain hours they just have to be at work. You can't get around that. You know, you've got a retail shop and they need to be there. So you sort of have to think about what you can and can't offer and get that very clear before you are asked and commit to something that you can't follow through on. And what is your salary? Does it meet award conditions? Next slide. I have to move us around again on my screen. So you need to think about what you pay a new staff member. And also you need to know your award. There's been a number of cases in the commission lately. Woolworths is a good one. I think Coles as well, where once again, it's not the base pay that's the problem. It's the penalties and the allowances. There have been some massive changes to the modern awards, especially in the way salaries are calculated under the clerical award and a number of others, but the clerical is probably the one that has the most impact on so many people. And it's not a case of set and forget. Just because you looked at it 5 years ago, 2 years ago, last year even, doesn't mean your award hasn't changed. Doesn't mean there hasn't been a determination under the commission, which has changed, you know, for instance, the SHADS award, sleepover allowances. And that is just something you need to stay on top of. And what are your expectations? And it was interesting, in my child, he's in year 6, and his teacher said they don't like the word rules, they like expectations. And it was the same sort of language that we use. What are your expectations of your employees? And do you have a clear job description? Same for your contract. You need a contract as well. A handshake doesn't mean anything. I don't know, Sam, if you can just go on to fairwork.gov.au.
Sure.
Just share that for the minute, or I might be able to actually.
It's all right. I can bring it up.
Bring it up. Storm seems to have rolled away. It was short and fast and seems to have gone now.
There you go.
So if you aren't sure, this is an amazing website. I really do have to give it to Fair Work. Their information out there is spectacular. It's particularly good. So that pay and wages. So if you click on that first box, I wish our website looked like this. I'm so jealous when I see things like this. And scroll down. a little bit. There's a whole range of checkers that you can use here. So there's this is the pay calculator. And if you click that one, you can work your way through that and you can work out exactly what you should be. You work your way through that screen and you put their rosters in, you put the award, and it will actually tell you what you need to be paying. So that is something that you can do. It's not hard. And you know, if there is something you run into and you don't know what it means, or you don't know how to work it out, if you go, now they've changed this around, but if you go up the top, don't be scared to contact, there's a login. So if you click that, don't be scared to contact Fair Work, because they are actually really helpful, and they are there to help not just the employers, they are there to help the employers. So if you don't have an account, you just register. You do have to put your details in, but it's not, you know, it's not a data match with the ATO or anything like that. They're not going to use it, you know, in a case. It's simply there for information, and you can either call them, but we always do it. We always suggest to do it online, because then you have it in writing back from Fair Work as well. So really good if you're querying something, or one of your employees is, because you get a written response back. Sometimes the response is a bit grey and you might need to seek further advice. But, you know, as a starting point, I can't stress enough how good this website actually is, especially for rates of pay. So any questions from that? Oh, we've got a couple more participants. Any questions? No?
Nope.
Excellent. We might go to the next slide. So one of the things we often see in our line of work are job descriptions that are like this long. And like, even I can't get through them. I'm like, oh gosh, I can't read any more of this, you know. Restaurant one, you must fill up the salt shakers at the beginning of each, you know, and the way you set the tables. That's not a job description. That's a procedure manual. And I think they often get very confused. A job description should be high level. It's something you use in the recruitment process. It outlines your skills. It outlines, you know, your responsibilities. It outlines what success looks like. And we really do try and use that positive language around expectations, accountability, and success, because if you're not setting your employee up for success, why are you hiring them? You know, you need to be giving them the tools to make it work, because that's what we all want. An employment contract, it is just so important. I can't stress enough. We see so many wage claims from people who don't have a contract, and without a contract, you just haven't got, you know, there's just nothing to back you up. Some awards even require it, especially if you're doing flat rates. And if you do flat rates, you must have that contract in there that your employee has agreed to. Or if you're on an annualized salary under any of those awards, like I mentioned, like the clerical award. It doesn't have to be onerous. It just has to cover some certain areas. So any questions? No? Okay, Sam.
Values. Okay. So one of the things that's really important when you're recruiting somebody is to make sure there's an alignment of values. So, you know, what does the employee that's coming on, do they know why you exist? Do they know what your why is? If you want to know more about uncovering what your business why is look up on YouTube a guy by the name of Simon Sinek. There's a YouTube, it's actually a bit grainy because it's quite old, but there's a great YouTube clip on understanding what your business's why is, if you don't already know what that is. But when you bring an employee on, they need to understand what your values are in your business, so that you can, one, make sure that they're in alignment, and also two, so that it comes into the expectations that you have of them and how you want them to operate within your business. And it just also makes sure that everybody's on the same page, that the employee knows upfront, okay, this is what's expected of me, and these are the values that the business holds closely. So it's one of those sort of, I guess in the past it's been a bit more warm and fuzzy, but it's really important now to make sure that your clients are on board, because they need to have similar values to what your business has. So the recruitment processes do matter. Like there's a few reasons why, and one of the main ones is that you want to make sure that you are recruiting people that are going to be a good fit for the business, and you want to weed out the ones. It's not a terribly lovely phrase, but you do need to weed out the ones that are not going to be a good fit for your business, because having an employee, if you're 3 to 6 months down the track and you're like, oh, this is not working, that they weren't a good fit for us, you've spent a lot of money, time and energy and training, getting them up to speed, making sure that they've got everything they need. And it can be a very costly exercise for a business, particularly a small business, to bring somebody on and then realise, a month or so down the track they're not a good fit, and then have to re-recruit, replace and retrain. So it's a really important aspect of business to have a good recruitment process, so that you can make sure you're employing the right person for the job, make sure that they understand what's expected of them, and they can transition into the business smoothly by through this process.
I feel like I missed that process with my dogs, who are desperately trying to get into this room. I didn't set my expectations. They aren't aware of my values. Let me go and chase them away.
One pacing back and forwards, back and forwards, back and forwards. So yeah.
You've got the same problem. The joys of working and doing webinars from home.
Yeah.
So WorkCover, as Beck mentioned, WorkCover is an important aspect, and it is often overlooked. So you do need to make sure that you have WorkCover to guard against any workplace-related injuries that they may sustain. This is particularly important for the likes of trades. That there is risk involved in working on a work site. And so you need to make sure that all of your employees are covered. So, and
just touching on that with trades too, there's a few things like portable long service leave and a few of those other, that certain industries have as well. So it's really important that you're all over your insurances, your work cover, what you need to be paying into in regards to some of those other schemes that are actually mandated within those industries.
Yes, and then on top of that, you've also got things like public liability and professional indemnity insurance that, depending on what industry you're in, that you really need to have covered. But for instance, for us, we need to have professional indemnity with what we do, and I will talk a little bit about what we do later on. But that's an insurance that we need to have to make sure that if we accidentally delete a database or we get hacked or something like that, even with all of the processes and systems we have in place to stop that, we're covered by insurance, that if our clients sustain any sort of loss of time or money, we're covered, and we're able to cover the costs that are associated with that. So WorkCover is one of them, and then you've got those other insurances too that are important to make sure you've got in place. This is us. So essentially, this is our mission, is to serve, to support and create freedom for busy tradies and business owners. So the mission is one of the things that I go through when we recruit. So Lindsay, who's also on the call, is my right-hand woman now and a superstar when it comes to the services we deliver. When she joined us, I explained to her what our mission was, what our values were, how we came about, and gave her a really in-depth overview of the types of services that we provide, which you can see there on the screen. It's very important that you're educating and informing your employees on what you're about and the types of services or products that you provide. So here are the three things that I'm going to continue to talk about here. So the first one is the setting of expectations, and I touched on that before when we talked about values and making sure that your employees understand what your values are. And then we'll talk a little bit about streamlining. So why are setting expectations important with employees when they start? So the first is that it provides clarity for them, but it also provides clarity for you. So when you're thinking of recruiting somebody, what you first need to think about is, okay, well, what are my expectations of this role and this person? And getting very clear on that. It's a really good starting point. Also, with setting expectations, obviously it increases the chances of success. If your employee doesn't know what's expected of them, then there's a much higher chance that they're going to fail in that role. So it creates this increase of being successful in the role because they know what they need to do. It also keeps them focused. So making sure that they know their role, how they're supposed to operate within the business, the boundaries to their role, that sort of thing. It helps keep them focused on the tasks at hand that you've employed them for. And setting expectations establishes a performance baseline. So you know where you're working from, and so does the employee. And then obviously improves productivity and engagement too, because again, if they're coming into a business blind, and this has happened to me before when I've been employed, is, I'm sort of thrown in the deep end and expected to work it out for myself. It doesn't set me up for success, and it doesn't improve how I feel in terms of productivity and engagement and feeling part of the business. So it does help with that side of things as well. So there's 4 key areas to set expectations on, and Beck, feel free to jump in if there's other areas that you think are important too. But obviously the work itself, what is the job role? What are the tasks that this person's expected to do? What is the quality of that work that is the expectation? So when Lindsay joined us, one of our really key elements to our business is customer service. So when she joined, I explained to her that the expectation we have is very high level of customer service. So that's just an example of a role or part of the role. And obviously I went into a lot more depth about what that looks like, but it was something I made really clear to her when she started, that this was an expectation we had, is that we delivered really high quality customer service. It also helps with knowledge and boundaries, like making sure they know where are their skill gaps, where do they potentially need some extra training, that sort of thing. But also, where do you draw the line in that role? Are there areas that are outside their jurisdiction that they shouldn't be entering into? If they're not told that sort of information, then they don't know where those boundaries lie. I think
that's a really important one. That's sort of non-negotiables. What are those non-negotiables within your business? One for us is, all our work must be reviewed. I still, I would get my work reviewed still, because you see what you want to see, not necessarily, what is there. Yes. And that's just one of the non-negotiables with us as well. And we're really clear on the boundaries and so, for instance, we have a graduate because we really believe in training people from the ground up, because if you don't start training people, there's such a skills gap further on, in every industry. So we've always had a graduate, but there are certain things that they just can't do and get involved in. And that you don't have to set that, like a school kind of way. You can set it in a very proactive and professional way. It doesn't have to be kind of awful.
Yeah, exactly.
There's certain non-negotiables.
It can be done in an inspiring sort of a way. So
exactly.
Yes.
This is where you need to be. Once you're here, we can, move you on to this type of work. And we have a whole competency training sort of system. So once you're here and you're capable of this, you move to the next thing. And, and it gives them a bit of clarity as well of where everybody needs to be.
Yeah, exactly.
So
the next area is communication. So what are the protocols around how you communicate? What are the channels of communication too? Because obviously today there's so many different ways we can communicate. There's WhatsApp, there's Slack, there's email, there's phone, there's text, there's Messenger, there's all sorts of different ways. So what are your preferred ways of communicating within the business, and frequency of communication, that sort of thing? Like, for instance, are you going to have weekly team meetings, or are you going to have daily catch-ups, or how are you going to communicate with each other to keep everybody on the same page? And what are the types of communication channels you're going to be using?
And on that, from a HR perspective too, because things like Slack, it's so like a great system, but it's so easy because it's a little bit more informal, and people, start to forget that it's still a workplace channel. And, you've just got to remember, from a workplace health and safety, from a bullying perspective, from a discrimination perspective, yep, the word I'm looking for,
Yeah.
that all of those channels, regardless of whether they're informal or not, they are still workplace channels, and your work rules still apply. And we've seen a lot of people sort of fall into, they send a meme that they think is funny, but is completely distasteful. And then, and it's because those channels are so much more informal. So, that's something, and you need to have really good policies around that as well.
Yeah, really good point. And time, expected response times and how to track time, that sort of thing. Like, for instance, Lindsay and I use an app called Clockify that we use to track our time of what we're working on. And the other thing is, what are the work hours? When can they have breaks? What is expected throughout the day? How much time are they supposed to be spending on different tasks, that sort of thing. So the communication around time is important too. And then the last one is culture, and culture does get overlooked a little bit. Culture is a really important aspect, and it doesn't matter how small or big your business is. It's really important to build that culture from the ground up, right from the beginning. Have a think about, what do you want to stand for? This is where your values come in. What is your mission? How do you want to operate as a business? What's important to you as a business and a business owner? What are the behaviours you'd like to see within the business? One of the things that we do that's important to us is we give back. So that's part of our culture, is providing, giving back to projects around the world that are important to us. So that's built into our culture. It's the type of thing you can play with and have a bit of fun too. Like, if part of your culture is to have a great sort of family bonded team, then have family bonding type activities outside the workplace to build that culture, barbecues or picnics, that sort of thing. So think about and play with some ideas of how you can build that positive culture within the business, because the other thing is it's very easy for a negative culture to come in. There's a book called A Fish Rots from the Head. And essentially what they're talking, it's actually a business book, ironically, but it talks about how a business will be successful based on the leadership of that business. And part of being a leader is ensuring that you're building the culture within that business that's going to be make the business a great place to work, have motivated employees who want to grow the business and that sort of thing. So yeah, culture is another area to set those expectations in. Now, how to set them. So I'm not going to go through every single little point here, but this just gives you a little bit of a roadmap of how to set the expectations within your business. So first of all, define what they are. And this is where you look to those, work communication, time and culture areas. Define what the expectations are in those areas, and look at things like daily timesheets and accountability for their duties and responsibilities, being positive, those sorts of things. There's a few examples up there on the screen that you can see, but get clear on what your expectations are first. Give purpose to the work too. So again,
if we can go back to the expectations too, I just think it's so important. Obviously you can't be positive all the time, but generally it's much better than kind of, actually sitting down with someone and actually even just saying, do you know why we're here today? Or, tell me about, why aren't you meeting your chargeable hours? Or how come, tell me about why this job took so long, and doing it, that was probably not a good example, but doing it in a proactive way. I think, it can be really scary for employers to manage employees. There's so much fair work and you have to make it formal. And I think the very worst thing you can do is from those first meetings, you don't have to send an email. You don't have to get a lawyer to write a letter because you've got a performance issue, and the other worst thing you can do is bury your head in the sand and pretend you don't. You're better to, try and solve the issue and do it in a proactive way rather than that kind of reactive, big stick, lawyer letter type way. And certainly it might get to that stage. I'm not saying it won't, but it doesn't have to start. And often we'll say, but what does the employee want? Or do you know what they think? And no one's even thought to ask them. And I just think, you know, just when you are defining it and setting that, it doesn't have to be a big stick kind of mentality. And when you're saying, sorry, I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but it's just something I'm really, you know, you can do it in that proactive kind of way.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly right. So next thing is give purpose to the work. So what is it that is the vision of the business? Like, what are you trying to achieve with your business? Like for us, it's that providing or creating freedom for our clients in the work that we do, because we do virtual admin work and customer service work. So our role is to, or our purpose of the work that we do is to create freedom for our clients so that they can grow their business, or they can spend more time with their family, or whatever it is they want to do with that free time. But that's what drives us each day. So that's the purpose behind our work. And this is where your why is tied in too, is the why you do what you do. It also helps with things like giving the employee a big picture view of the business, like what the big picture view is, because we often overlook that. We get right into the job and the tasks and the what the employee is expected to do, but we forget to give the overall journey of the business, the mission, the culture, all of those sort of bigger picture type things that they do tend to get overlooked. Also too, this really resonates with me, is the making sure that people know that they play a vital role in the business. Again, it doesn't matter if you're a small business, medium, or a massive international corporate giant. People want to feel like they're making a difference, and they want to feel like they belong. And it's really important that they understand that their role is really, doesn't matter whether they're a janitor or whether they're the CEO, their role is important in the successful functioning of that business. So making sure that that they understand that when you're bringing them on. Now, the other thing is when you're setting these expectations, it's really important to do it in person, but also put it on paper so that the employee can reference it if they need to. And it also gives them time to digest what you've talked about when it's on paper, and it provides that clarity that they need. So it is a good idea to do it in person and also have these written down in black and white on paper.
As we say, document. And it can be as simple as just following up from our meeting today. Just wanted to clarify these points.
Yes.
Obviously, if it's a performance meeting, there has to be a process you follow, and they need to be able to have a support person and all of that. But they don't generally start there. You know, you need to set those expectations from the start. So
that's right.
Don't go straight into that meeting.
That's right. So yeah, it's the other thing too, is that if you and this sort of starts to speak around the streamlining, is that if you have a document that sets out those expectations, you can reuse it. You might need to tweak it depending on the role, but generally it's this type of document that you can reuse. So be consistent. So model strong leadership qualities. Like you want to make sure that if you say you're going to do something, that you do it. The minute you start to cut corners or not do things that you say that you're going to do, you start to lose credibility, and your employees will start to think, oh, is this really, am I seeing the real leader here? Is this company for real, or this leader for real? So just make sure that you provide that consistency for them. And along with that goes the consistency of improvement too, because, also educating your employee that your expectation is that the business wants to grow, it wants to get better, same with you and in that role. So that's something to bring up front to them right from the beginning. And part of that is the creating routines. So, again, it gives a bit of stability for the employee to have some routines in place. A little bit like around the time factor that I was talking about before, one of those areas is making sure they understand, their daily roundups or their weekly catch-ups, what are the routines within that business, And it helps create sort of work rhythms for people. So it helps also with productivity, and also establish realistic timelines. So again, you know, if particularly if your business is deadline driven, if there's a lot of deadlines within the business, then just make sure that realistic timeframes are being allowed for the work to be completed. Have time discussions. There's great software around now where you can collaborate online and keep everybody up to date. And I'm going to talk about one of those software programs soon. And, you know, let employees know that within reason, deadlines can be extended. But again, you know, this is having those discussions up front to make sure that they know what their expectations are around delivery. An example is for us is that we will get quotes and invoices out within 24 hours. So that's a deadline that we've got in our business that we adhere to, but that sort of information needs to be communicated to a new employee. All right, do you have anything else to say, Beck, on setting expectations and how to do it?
I think too, you know, I think we can all have a perfect way, and, you know, I can see some things here, the realistic timeframes for work to be completed. That is something after 13 years, Phoebe and I are still trying to work out.
100%.
And I think that, you know, and I think part of being a leader too at times is also saying, you know, what can we do better? What did we do well? And having those kind of discussions without getting defensive, and owning it if you know that it hasn't been, you know, been a great week or something's gone wrong, or and I just think that, you know, we're not perfect, no one is. And, you know, it's about that constant improvement and being able to identify and keep improving. So don't beat yourself up of this, because I'm looking at things thinking, oh, we could do better here and we could do better there. But I think that is, you know, that is just all part of it. And, you know, and just continuing to improve, small improvements.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing too is bring your employees in to help with uncovering what those improvements are. Lindsay and I have a Trello board, and on it is the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like, you know, on it we put, oh, here's something that we could improve. Here's something that's working really well. And I encourage Lindsay to add to that so that, you know, we can continue to improve and move the business forward.
And that's something too. We identified, you know, for us, we need to do more professional development with our team. We do a lot of on-job training, but, you know, we don't. And look, it's been COVID, so there haven't exactly been courses to go and do. But, you know, that's one of our real things that, you know, the last 2 years that we would normally do that have fallen down with COVID. And it's easy just to not, you know, to let it fall. But we really had to sit down and say, okay, what do we need to do better? And that was one of them. And, you know, everyone is doing some sort of professional development again. So
yeah, that's it. All right, so streamlining recruiting. So this is where I'm just gonna bring this across onto the screen. So I just mentioned before a software program called Trello. This is a if you're not familiar with it, it's a free, or there is a free version of this program, and the free version has a lot of capability. It's a great little program. It's very simple to use, and it's really good for collaborating. So you can see here, just if you see where my cursor is, you're able to invite people to the board. So this whole thing is called a board, or a workspace is the other term they use. And these underneath, these are sort of lists, but these little things here are called cards. So it's essentially a project management sort of software, but it has real versatility. So what I've done here is I've set up a board for streamlining the recruitment of an employee. And what I'll do is I'll give you some ideas on the sorts of things that can be on this board, but I'll also, at the same time, I'll show you some really basic functioning of the software so you get a feel for it. But the way that I like to work with Trello is this is the beginning of the process and this is the end. And these are the steps in between in order. So you're working from left to right, and you're sort of working down each list in you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the order of priority, but it can be if you want it to be. So if we look at under advertising, so this is when you're first, you know, looking for somebody to recruit. And Beck, feel free to jump in if there's other things that you think could be added to the board, because I do find we do this for our own business, and I do find I'm constantly adding to it. I'm constantly tweaking it, adding things to it. So it is an evolving
and
thing.
that's for any HR document. They should not be dust collectors on shelves. They should be constantly updated, constantly changed, constantly, you know, they should be a live document. So that's, yeah, I totally agree.
Exactly. Yeah. So for instance, under the advertising, this is where you could have the position description. So you'll see here when you click on the card, there's the template. I've got a template position description for our VA position. And so this is attached to the card, and you can download it and open it from here. So you could have a number of position descriptions here if you've got multiple roles in your business. You can see on the right-hand side here, these are a bunch of different functionalities that each card has. But, you know, some of them you might use, some of them you won't. But the other thing is here is you can write notes in the card if you want to. And whoever's got access to the board has access to these cards. So the other thing here is your template job ad. Again, I've got it attached here. It's part of this card. So you could have a template job ad there. If you move across to the applicants, things like template emails. Here's some wording that we use for when we're confirming that we've received their application. This we copy and paste into an email and shoot off to the applicant. This sort of stuff is so good because you don't want to have to reinvent the wheel every time. So if you have template documents that you can use, tweak as you need, because you know it's not often a one size fits all. Sometimes it is, but tweak as you need. Here is a checklist. Like for instance, with our rollers, have they got the required skill and experience we're looking for? And if they do, you can tick it. Have they answered the application questions thoroughly? Yes or no? Tick it. Have they got their own workspace, strong internet and phone? Because that's part of us because we work from home. You would make up in this checklist whatever's applicable to the role that you're recruiting for. And the checklist is easy to develop. You just click on it over here and you give it a title, add it, and then you add each item here. So it's super easy, quick to use, and then there's your checkbox there if you want to use it. So checklists are great. You can create them in different parts of the recruitment process. Here are examples of, so this is Lindsay, I've got her resume saved here. I've got the questions that I asked her in the interview. I've got the answers to those questions saved here. And she was a rock star. So she got all ticks in her checklist. So, you know, I've got one for each, and these names have been changed obviously for privacy reasons, except for Lindsay's, but these were checklists for other people other applicants that we had. Shortlisted candidates, what are the pros and cons? So this is a spreadsheet that I've got attached that I've got the pros and cons for each applicant outlined in. And then the interview process is, these were the scripts that we used and the questions that we asked. Again, it's a document that we created that sits under here. And then communicating to applicants, what did we say to the successful applicant? What are the things that we need them to fill out? Like, for instance, we got HR Dynamics to organise position descriptions, an assessment of the workplace, letter of engagement, an employment agreement. We got all that done, and it was so easy to just engage HR Dynamics to do that for us because they know what's required, and they've got much more in-depth knowledge on that than I do. But all of those things you can see are sitting under this card here.
I like that the Fair Work statement's there. That's something a lot of people miss.
Yes.
That has to go by law.
Yes,
so I'm very pleased to see that sitting
there.
Yeah,
so that Fair Work information statement, I just attached to the email because we've got it downloaded as well.
And it
Unsuccessful.
changes every year too, which is something for employers to watch out for.
Yeah.
So you can't give an old copy of it, and it changes generally around July, but sometimes Fair Work like to throw a few spinners in those works, so don't hold me to that.
So, and this is where this becomes a dynamic software program too, is that that's a perfect example, is that each year that needs to be updated in the program. So unsuccessful shortlisted candidates. So these were the guys that we interviewed, but they didn't, Lindsay got the role, they didn't get the role. So, this is a bit of a template script that we can use in when we're speaking with them. Again, it's just a template. It's not, we don't read it word for word. It's just a prompt for us on some of the things that we want to cover off with that candidate. And who these are the unsuccessful candidates. These are the ones that didn't make it to the interview process. So,
and I like that you've got back to everyone. I think if someone has taken the time to apply, you need to take the time to get back to them.
100%.
And they might be your customer at some stage as well.
Yeah. And they may be for another role. Maybe they're better suited for another role. I agree, Beck. I 100% agree that you need to get back to everybody. And let them know where, what's happened, essentially.
Yeah, I just, if they've taken the time to apply, it's only fair.
Yeah, agree. And a new team member checklist. So again, we're constantly adding to this, but I've added even things in here like add their birthday to the calendar, so that when their birthday rolls around, you can take them to lunch or give them a gift or do something special. So just little bits and pieces.
So 24th of May, if you want to add it.
Got it. Noted. So that's an example of the types of things that you can have ready to go that you tweak depending on the job and the type of business that you've got, that sort of thing. But that will really cut down the amount of time it takes you to recruit by having all of these things in one place. And you can invite people to the board who are also involved in the process. So did you have anything to add to that, Beck?
No, my only thing is just watch the discriminatory questions, and even in your note taking and your pros and cons, ensure that there's nothing discriminatory. Afterwards, you'll get an email after the webinar, and there's a PDF that has all the things you can't ask, and you can't make your decisions based on them either. So it's just one of those things. You would be amazed how many interviews I've sat in on and people say, how many kids do you have? Or it's just it's and sometimes, in fairness to people, they're just making small talk, but just be really cautious that small talk's your weather in the storm, not how many kids do you have.
Yeah, that's right. And the other thing to note is the information on these boards is you've got to make sure it's private. Like it's not, you don't give access to every man and his dog because of those reasons. Like you've got some sensitive information on there. The pros and cons type thing is it's more of a for your own eyes to prompt yourself and remind yourself, what were the things that were pros and cons for each candidate. Now, so this is the type of thing you can create for when you're onboarding your employee. So things like the first day agenda. Again, you'll see there's a document there. What are they going to be doing on their first day? Give them some clarity around that. And I'm just going to speed through this because we are running out of time, but this will just give you an idea. This is the learn more about Get Synergy. So this is where the values comes in. This is where the expectations come in. This is where you talk about the journey of the business and the business why. So that's what's all in this document. Again, once that document's created, you don't need to reinvent it every time. Just make sure it's up to date. That's all you need to do. So there is a fair bit of upfront time with this sort of stuff, but once it's there, it's done. And you just are modifying and improving and tweaking and adding as you go. So it's something that saves a lot of time. Going through all the employee documents and paperwork, the work from home agreement, all that sort of thing, making sure we've received the paperwork and that it's signed and initialed, all the things that you need to make it a binding document, going through that with the employee. What your pay cycle is and the starting date for the first pay, making sure they understand that.
And kind of some of those unwritten rules too. A lot of people start in a workplace, there's a lot of unwritten rules.
Yeah.
And probably not so much for your business, but I've certainly worked in places where that is Joy's mug, and do not have a cup of tea out of Joy's mug or hell will break loose.
Yes.
And they're those kind of unwritten sort of rules. So
how the staff kitchen works, all that sort of thing. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how many staff disputes start in staff kitchens.
Yeah.
So dishwashers and washing dishes and people's mugs, but give the employee a bit of an overview. Don't make them kind of find out the hard way for some of those unwritten rules.
Exactly. Good point. Review dates, like when you're going to review, if you've got a probationary period and that sort of thing, let them know what they are. This for us is a piece of equipment that we use. So I've got in there the brand and model of the headset we recommend that we provide our employees. Setting up emails and their email signature. There's a great little free email signature generator. If you just Google free email signature template HubSpot, or just free email signature HubSpot, something like that, you'll find it. But you can generate some really good quality email signatures using that, and setting up the email address for the employee. And this is another one that we have is making sure that they follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn on all our socials, so that they can see what's happening with our social media. Here we've got the expectations. Like, you could add a document here about what your expectations are. I've actually included that in our About Get Synergy document. So, but that could be something that you have separate if you wanted to. Protecting our clients' login details with LastPass. So this is around security and privacy. So making sure that our employees understand that. This label here, you can create labels in Trello really easily. You just click on labels here and create a new label. And let's just say it's on hold or something like that. Choose a color, hit create, and then that's created this label here. And to take it off, you just toggle. So you just click on it again and it takes it off. So that can highlight things for you there with the labels if you want. Again, security around our Trello boards, like I was saying before, that, privacy, you've got to make sure that people can't access those. Workplace health and safety. What are the things again, that for us is covered over in this area with our documents, but workplace health and safety, what are the rules and regulations around that for your particular industry? All of these are all about software that we use. So we've got training videos and things like that under here that help with training our employees on all the different software programs we use. So videos are a great way to do that. With a lot of our software, we've just gone and Googled overview of Xero, or how to set up a client, in a CRM, that sort of thing. So if you Google them, they're usually already done, and you can just have a repository of those that your clients can access to understand how to use the different software programs that you might be using. Here are examples of clients, and I won't open these because we have actually got client information under there, but you could have under there, how are you working with that client? What are some notes on that client? What are the documents involved? What is training videos around that client? Again, there's another software program called Loom, LOOM for Mary. It has a free version to it. Great program. On the free version, you can only record up to 5-minute videos, but honestly, you don't want to really record any longer than that anyway, because you want to chunk things down if you can. But again, great free program that you can use to create videos of your desktop or you speaking. But those sorts of things can go under client cards here if you want. And then ideas and improvements. So that's what I was saying before about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So this is where I encourage Lindsay to add here what's working, what's not working, how can we improve, and those sorts of things that you think about, but sometimes you don't note down and you forget. So this is a place for her to put them. So that's a really quick overview of Trello, but also of the types of things that you can have to streamline working with onboarding your clients, onboarding your employees, but also recruiting your employees. So that just gives you a little bit of a quick overview. But look into Trello. It's a great little software that you can use for that sort of thing. Now, where are we here? Will it page down? No, it won't, will it? So that was we've already done the onboarding. So do you guys have any questions at all? Was there anything in the chat?
Yes, I put a question in the question and answers.
Perfect.
About, can you see it?
How does WorkCover work when an employee has an accident?
Right. So is it someone who's had an accident at work, and have they gone to their doctor and obtained a WorkCover certificate? Is that something that's happened, just hypothetically, for your friend?
No, I haven't had anyone do it.
Oh, right. You just wondered
what.
Right.
Actually, I've never experienced it, so I just wondered what.
So,
I've got WorkCover, but how does WorkCover work?
Yes. So if someone injures themselves at work, the first thing they would do is go to the doctor or the medical center or the hospital or wherever it is they go, and they'll be issued with a WorkCover medical certificate. It's different to a normal medical certificate. And it will have, whether they're completely unfit for duty or whether they're able to do suitable duties. And depending on that, so they might be unfit for, a week, and then they might come back to suitable duties. And when they come back, you do a suitable duties plan up of what the doctor will say. So they might say they can only lift 10 kilos, they can't sit at a desk for more than 40 minutes. Depending on the injury, there'll be a whole range of suitable duties that you can provide. And then WorkCover will be notified, and sometimes the claim will just go through because there's a really bad view of WorkCover out there, but sometimes people just do injure themselves at work too. They might fall down the stairs and break their arm, or I slipped over today and we made a bit of a joke and said, should we do an incident report? But it was only because Nicole was standing behind me and she sort of caught me because it was the wet floor, that it wasn't a lot worse. People do genuinely hurt themselves at work. So in that case, you just let it go through. It goes through the WorkCover process. Then, the suitable duties are completed and the WorkCover is finalised. It generally can be quite a simple process. Then there can be really drawn out processes as well. And that would be something you would cover at the time. But when they do injure themselves, they go to the doctor for that WorkCover medical certificate. That is the first step.
Great question, Jo.
Yeah, but I was actually wanting to know, who pays who? Do you just continue paying them when they're on WorkCover?
WorkCover will let you know there is an excess. So once the claim is approved, the employer pays an excess, and then WorkCover will pick it up, depending on whether it's the suitable duties or whether they're completely not at work. So if they're completely not at work, once you've paid your excess, WorkCover will pay. And then when on the suitable duties, sometimes WorkCover will make up the difference as well. You'll pay them for when they're at suitable duties, and the WorkCover will make up the difference.
Well, my employer is like a casual employee, sorry. And so he doesn't work, sometimes he works 6 hours, sometimes he works 7 hours. So how do they work out what they're going to pay him?
That's a good question, and I'm not sure what the formula is with WorkCover at the moment, but they generally do like an average or the roster. They might get the roster as well, but that's probably something I can get back to you on. I'm not sure what their current calculations are.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. We do have an offer for anybody interested. So Jo, obviously you're already one of our clients, so the first month offer doesn't apply. But if either of you guys are needing some help with either a workflow review, so a workflow review is what are the processes from start to finish with a customer. Say another way of describing it is a customer journey. If you would like a free one of those, happy to offer that, or a free 1 hour session help setting up your employee onboarding Trello board or your recruiting Trello board. So if you're wanting some help some guidance on that, we can do a 1 hour session on that. So that's what we're offering. And then HR Dynamics, you might want to speak through to this, Beck.
Yeah, so obviously for these packages, they're generally for multiple people. So we decided to do a 50% off, a discount off our silver package for help with recruiting your first staff member. So that's a special price of $2,500. Out of that, you do get an amazing staff handbook, which I can send an example to everyone who's been here as well. We've got permission from one of our clients to send theirs out. It's fully graphically designed, so it's interesting to employees. It's certainly not just a document that sits on the shelf. You get all your contracts, your rates. So that means someone sits there and goes through what you need to be paying, what are your penalties, and they'll go line by line for each employee. You get your template contracts, and they're in Word. So as you saw Sam's, she's using them for where she grows and adds another Lindsay to the mix. She'll be using them for the new Lindsay as well. So you don't have to come back to us every time. It's a one-off cost for that. And you get all of your recruitment forms, your application forms, your work cover questionnaires, what else do we give? Warning forms. There's heaps, job descriptions, a lot. And we can do a payment plan as well.
Mm. And I can, like I said before, it was so easy getting those documents that I got together with HR Dynamics, because all it was a phone call, and they just asked a bunch of questions about the business and the role. And then they went off and created the documents for me. It was really an easy process. And it gave me so much peace of mind to know that we had everything covered that we needed to. So it's great to be able to provide that offer, Beck. So thank you. And I think that's us done, unless anybody's got any final questions for us. We're all good. And thank you for braving the storm.
It's sort of gone from here.
Yeah, it was sort of short and sharp here too. So,
yeah, it's sort of poured and poured. What about up at Budrum, Lindsay?
She's going to unmute.
Yeah, it seems to have gone. Like when you heard that crash of thunder, I heard it too. So I think we're pretty close to each other.
Yeah.
So our office is in Budrum, and it flooded. The eaves couldn't hold the water. And then the eaves collapsed and it all came in. It was 3 times. So it's been this is my naughty dog who's been barking that you probably heard. So yes, if anyone would like him, he doesn't follow his employment contracts at all. Really, mate.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us, guys. And just so that you know, the next workshop we're doing, Beck alluded to, it's creating it. Oh, I've just had a mind blank, Beck.
So just recruitment that's
creative recruitment. That's
creative recruitment. How I don't have a magic wand, unfortunately.
Yes.
But we can give some things a go.
Yeah, and look, there's different things we can try to at least try and get candidates in the tough labour market that we're currently in. So we're going to talk about some potential strategies that can be used to recruit creatively in a tough labour market.
Which, yes, so and it doesn't seem to be slowing down, which is really, really interesting. I thought once COVID was over, I don't know, is it over? I'm not sure.
Oh God, who knows if it's over.
I thought that things would but it's a bit like the property market, it just seems to be going up, and I just don't know how it can sustain. So
that's it. Strange times we live in.
Very strange times. So, and if anyone knows of a dental ceramist, because they are very hard, we've been recruiting for 1.5 years for one.
Oh wow.
Let us know. Our poor client is just ready to tear her hair out.
Yeah, that's it. That's a niche role.
Very niche role.
Yeah. And guys, our email address, if you want to take up any of those offers, is hello@getsynergy.com.au. And Beck, what's your email address?
Best one is Rebecca, REBECCA @hrdynamics.com.au.
Yeah, so you can contact us on that, and both of us have websites as well, so you can catch us on our website.
And ours is brand new, so jump on and have a look and let us know.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
Nice. Oh,
I love
thank you
new
so much,
websites.
guys. Yes, me too. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Have a great evening, and we will see you soon.
See you later.
Thanks, Sam.
No problem.
Thanks, Sam
guys.
and Beck.
Bye.
Bye.